Good morning, Devil Dog Day Trading Community. Welcome. My name is Michael, and I'll be taking you through my day trading setup for today. This is December 2nd, 2021. Special welcome to all of you who are serving or have served in the armed forces. And of course, we do save the best for last year, so a more special welcome to all my fellow Marines out there. Semper Fi, Jarheads. For those of you joining us for the first time, we are on a journey together here. And we have people from all skill and experience levels as part of this community. So the information that we show on our sessions each day is presented in ways that does resonate with multiple levels of experience and understanding. But if you do have a question or comment about what you hear, just shoot us a note in the chat and we'll make sure that we answer it. Or leave us a comment or send us an email, contact us, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. Make sure that you have the best experience possible and understand as much as possible as we go through each one of these sessions. Just a reminder, our feed here on YouTube can be delayed by up to 30 seconds. So if you don't see an answer to your comment in chat there immediately, that will be why. I will make sure and monitor it though, and make sure we get back to you throughout the show. We actually have time left at the end of the show to make sure that we answer all of those questions and comments that do come through. So the first thing we do every day is to look at everything happening in the past 24 hours and also check Forex Factor to see if there's any impactful events today that may affect our day trading setup. So let's jump over there real quick. And so look, past 24 hours, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, right? We had the ADP non-farm employment change. There you see at 8:15 yesterday, that wasn't a big mover. 10 a.m. we also had a couple of things there with the Fed share and ISM manufacturing PMI. Again, none of these really had any significant impact, which isn't unusual. It's just good to note that they are there and that they can potentially impact our trading day. Looking forward to today. We have OPEC meetings all day long. When those end, typically speaking, is when you'll see potential big moves in crude oil. So it's just good to note there. What I typically do is when OPEC meetings are going on or anything that relates to overall oil production, I just stay away from smaller time frame trades. Larger time frame ones usually still work, but smaller time frame ones don't. And then we just have a couple of other orange ones here. We've got unemployment claims at 8:30. Secretary Yellen is speaking at 9, and then we've got several FOMC members speaking throughout the rest of the morning. But nothing significant that we need to pay too much attention to. So just a quick reminder of our overall agenda here. We look at index correlation markets first, look at Forex, go into our futures markets, and then crypto, and then depending on how much time we have, we'll look at the ETFs and some individual stocks. I will look at those for options plays only, not for actually purchasing the underlying security there. So let's jump into that. We start with our DAX German index here, and I just at the 1 hour time frame just to show what happened yesterday. We talked about this too. We had these couple of zones here that one of them worked from a short 2-to-1 profit ratio here. We already pulled that one off. The other one we said was probably not going to work and price was just going to go right through it, and sure enough it did. However, price is now coming back down again. We're showing a little bit of additional weakness. And just real quick on the daily chart, I'll see if there's anything bigger that we're looking at there. And we really aren't. We still believe that this weekly area here has some additional strength to it. And so as we look through the rest of our index and correlation markets, we'll get a little bit better picture of where we think price is going to go. There's a couple of zones on our index futures that I want to show you on the daily chart that I think could drive some of this as well. So switching over to our TradeStation platform. This is the one where we do a majority of our charting at, and we'll start here at the dollar index. And real quick, just right back over to our daily chart first to set our overall context. And as we see here, it's basically been a little bit of a small correction here down over the past several days. We do still have this area below at 95 where we think price could potentially turn, but as you can see, dotted or dashed line there, I just refer to the agenda at the top of your screen here. that means it's an area of interest where we would need additional confirmation that price was going to change there. We don't think it's going to just change there automatically. But that's where we see the dollar at, right? It's sticking within its previous several days candles here. So just we need it to move out of there before we look at any larger time frame moves. So just be cautious of where the dollar is at throughout the day until it moves out of those areas. Just taking a quick look at the charts here without blowing any of them up. I want to look at the 60-minute one here just to see if there's anything else of interest that we could use throughout the day. And what basically what we see here is, for all intents and purposes, this is another consolidation area. And so you see price just keeps coming down here, price is coming up here. Price movements are just getting smaller and smaller and smaller here. We're looking for that to break out of these areas before we're looking to take any trades here. So unfortunately today, the dollar is not going to be much of a help to us. Let's see, moving on, let's go ahead and take a look at our VIX market. This is volatility index. Again, just a quick refresher. VIX goes up. U.S. indexes usually go down. VIX goes down. U.S. index markets usually go up. So on a daily chart, we are still just keep going higher and higher, and even getting more and more time outside of the upper Bollinger Band right here. Right, you can see these candles are still putting a lot of their time above there. Again, just remember this Bollinger Band is based on standard deviation, and so 95% of all activity happens between the two lines. So at some point, we're going to get that back down, majority of the trading activity below that line, and so we're looking for that to happen to get a little bit more stability in here, and use this to better predict what the index markets are going to do. I did have an area here on our 480-minute chart. We just change this color again so you can see this a little bit better. And as you can see here, right, the price came up to this area 2 times in the past, and then came up again for the 3rd time, which means it's highly unlikely that it's going to work. Really usually they only work once, maybe twice, and certainly not the 4th time that price goes through here. So that's not unexpected that it would have gone all the way through there. I do want to just show this real quick though. We do have price points going up right here, and then you look down below and you've got the RSI going back down again. So that's some negative divergence there, which means we're probably going to see some sort of a corrective activity in this case. But again, as we have no zones to work out, there's no high probability that is going to work. Looking down at our 60-minute chart just to see if there's anything again that we can use today, you do still see that price is continuing to play at and above the upper limit Bollinger Band. And when we look down and left, we did see we got very close down here to this area of interest that we had, and it really did drive the price action very, very high. But again, there's nothing up and left that we can look at here and actually use. So again, we're just kind of in limbo. All of our correlation markets so far aren't really giving us a lot of help as to what happens in there. Typically speaking, if I get this far into my setup, I just know today is going to be an extra cautious day all around. Right? We're looking to take high probability trades, not to make guesses here. Moving on to Forex, let's take a look at Euro USD. And honestly, there's not enough has changed in the last couple of days, right? We're still sitting in the exact same area, so let's not waste our time here. No new zones have formed, and if you take a look at some of the previous sessions, if you want to get an idea of where to look for trades for the Euro USD. USD JPY, Japanese yen. This one, I'll just take a look at this real quick because we are, looks like we're in the same kind of consolidation of white space area. However, we're showing some additional weakness here. And so just looking on the daily chart, there's nothing that we can use above, and we are just waiting for price to get down to this 111,394 area before we are interested in looking at taking anything, getting back in on this longer move up. 60-minute chart, again, just to see is there anything that we can use here, because we are continuing to, I said, perform this consolidation area. Prices moving smaller and smaller and smaller. We've got negative divergence on our RSI, which could indicate a move back up again. However, there aren't any zones for us to use, so just take that into consideration. There's no active trades, active zones there. Let's see. Okay, moving on. Let's go ahead and get into our futures markets, and we start with our commodities futures. So oil, we talked about this in the daily overview. OPEC meetings going on. So again, you want to be very careful of smaller time frames, and oil is just continuing to show this significant weakness here. Let me just zoom in on this for you. We're not really creating anything above that we can use on a daily chart, and we are very far away from any other activity. Let me just see if there's, again, anything that we're interested in here. As I look down and left through all of this, there isn't anything here that really jumps out that we're interested in. So again, this is an area, we talked about this a couple times earlier this week, where we're going to wait until oil changes direction wherever it's going to, and then look for some more stability there before we look to get in on any trades here. Nothing on a 240-minute chart. I'll just pull up the 60-minute to see again. And man, it's not really giving us anything. Nothing even in the price, in the candle structure, that we can use with any high level of confidence here. All right, and again, I said because they've got the OPEC meetings all day, I'm not even going to look on the lower time frames. It's not advisable to take any of those trades today itself. All right, let's go to gold. GC symbol here for futures. We did have contract rollover last night, so that's why you'll see, if you look on the smaller time frame charts up on the top row here, you've got that very scattered candle chart or candle pattern there, and now. Once we had contract rollover at 6 p.m. last night, you'll see the candles now are nice and smooth because we're on the new contract where all the volume is at. And the gold continues its move down as well. Pull the daily chart here because I thought, okay, there isn't anything good here until we get all the way down past this whole entire, I would call this a very large white space area here from a daily chart. 240-minute chart, we did have these couple of areas here that we said were potentials, but just because of the placement of them and the way that the trend is going, they weren't high probability areas. So if you were watching this yesterday, you probably could have taken this trade right in here if you were looking for that confirmation, waiting for that price action to actually turn around for you, and gotten in on a smaller time frame. But as you can see, it just instantly went right through this area, right through the second one. And but again, pay attention to this lower area here, and again, watch it on a smaller time frame. This is 240, so go down to a 60-minute, maybe like a 30-minute chart. And if you see, again, the confirmation that the price movement is looking like it's moving back up again, you get some negative divergence on your RSI or just some other indicator, then that might be a good area for price to turn in. Okay, go down here, the 60-minute chart, just to see. I'm just real quick here looking up and left. I don't see anything. Looking down and left, there isn't anything here that we're interested in looking at right now. Okay, let's move on. Natural gas. Talked about this a little bit yesterday too. Sent out a note that we've got price coming down to a pretty solid area on our daily chart here. And again, natural gas is continuing down as well. We did confirm that we set a downtrend on the daily chart. So anything that you take moving up, on a smaller time frame would be a counter trend trade. So just be cautious of that. And So this is the area that we're talking about right here, right? 3951. Lower probability area, but again, we've got a couple of other indications, right? We've got price going outside of the Bollinger Bands here. And again, if you see negative divergence on RSI or some other indicator there on a lower time frame, then this area may work. Again, confirmation area only, and we're not seeing create anything new up above that we're interested in getting into. I just pulled up to 240-minute chart because we did have a couple of areas here that we had that did not work. One of them we thought higher probability, so that's why you got that solid line there, and I'll draw that box as a failed trade. And then, of course, the other area that we had here that was just an area to watch out for. Nothing happened in it, so we weren't able to take advantage of it. Again, that's why it was marked that way. I will say we've got a good solid formation right here on the drop candle, drop, 3 base candles, and another drop here. I'll draw that a little bit up into the zone, give us a little bit of wiggle room on top for our stop market order. And if you look left here, it's not completely clean. I would have preferred that this area be a little bit lower and taken out all of these pivot lows here. However, we are in a confirmed downtrend, so this would be to continue with the overall trend. Let's go ahead and mark this one off. Okay. All right, 60-minute time frame. The first thing that we notice just real quick before we even zoom in is price action is getting lower. RSI is getting higher down here. So you got a little bit of negative divergence there, which is why you may have tried to get into a couple of those other 240-minute zones. But again, in the end, they all still did not work out. And just from a structure, a candle structure perspective, those type of zones we're looking for, we do have one right here. And prices come close to it so far, but not close enough that I would consider that this has been used yet. So this would be another one where you could potentially get back in on a little bit lower move. All of the, we're very, very low in this move here. Let me just zoom out again. Very low in this overall move here from the last significant correction in natural gas. So that's what you typically don't want to take longer term shorts when you're this low from the overall context. However, so when you do that, just take additional risk of mitigation measures, maybe a smaller position size, maybe use a 1-to-1 for your half of the position so that you can break even on it if it doesn't continue on, or just move your stop up sooner rather than later there. All right, on a 15-minute chart, what else do we have? Just zoom in on this overall picture here. And so you've got another indication that this area might be a reasonable one to take because you've got a zone on a 15-minute time frame. Same thing, right? Your drop in here, your leg candle, a base candle, another leg candle. You actually got 3 leg candles in a row. And you're starting to form a little bit of white space in this overnight trading area here. So if price popped up above there, it wouldn't be unreasonable to think it would hit this and then jump back down again. Let's go ahead and mark that up. And moving on, let's take a look at, let's go to our Nikkei. This is another correlation market that we use, but that we also trade, unlike the DAX, where it is just a correlation market. And we are still moving down overall here. Pull this up, right? You've still got these, each candle is moving a little bit lower, except yesterday didn't quite break the low here. And again, we are just waiting for price to get below all of this before we do anything at all, moving back up again on this, right? It's got to clear all of this white space area here. Got to get past this previous zone that we had drawn that's been used 1, 2, 3, 4 times successfully. So once price gets below there, then we're going to be interested in looking at areas where we could potentially turn and reverse the trend there. All right, let's look at. Let me pull up the 60-minute chart just real quick. But yeah, I didn't see anything when it was smaller picture there. But just to zoom in on it. We're still in a downtrend, so we want to look up and left to find anything. We talked about this area yesterday where it's just not a good one, not a solid one at all. So we're not interested in getting on anything here in the 60-minute time frame. Moving on to our bonds. So this is an interesting area where we've had some very unique movements between all of the different bonds themselves, between the 10-year futures, the 20-year ETF, and then the 30-year futures as well. So we'll try and get you that entire picture a little bit better today. We did have rollover for the futures contract, so that's why you're going to see gaps. This is probably, I'll bring it up on a 45-minute chart. It's really just a good picture here where you see the significant gap in price, right? This is where price closed out yesterday at 131, and then the new contract opened significantly lower down here. So this area in here, just be very, very cautious of it. And if you do feel like you need or want to trade in that area, just go to the contract specific chart itself, and you'll get a much better indicator of what price action is doing in there. But on a daily chart, what we had was price was continuing to move up and up and up, and we came very, very close to getting entry on this particular trade here, but we didn't. And as you can see with the contract rollover gap right here, we're probably not going to now. If price does come up that high, it'll be just a much stronger view, and we'll probably just go straight through that. So we'll consider this a missed entry for getting in here. If you had a trade in there before, I would, if I have pulled mine off here, because I don't think that this area is going to work again. So we are still bouncing back and forth between these two areas here. What we're looking for is on between the 10, 30, and 20-year ETF. Which one of those is giving us the best picture, so we know where the other ones are going to go. And right now, it's still uncertain. Nothing else on the 60-minute chart here. We do have this one zone lower on the 60-minute chart. Blow this up so we get a better idea of what this looks like. It's below all of this activity here. So again, a reasonable probability that this area is going to work. So if we see price come down to this level, and again, I'd probably look for one other confirmation point, whether that's the same zone on the 30-year or the 10 or the 20-year ETF, just something else that would give me a little bit higher probability that this is going to work. We'll take a look real quick at the 15-minute, but again, so close to contract rollover, you just want to be very, very careful in these 15-minute in the lower time frames. And so I'll just look in, what's happened within this last, within overnight trading since contract rollover. And nothing jumps out at me that we're interested in looking at. So let's jump over to our 30-year bonds. And again, we had contract rollover there. And you'll see, just looking at this, the top row of charts here, each this significant price difference. That's what happened with the rollover there. Starting with our daily time frame. Again, remember, we don't have the same area on the 30 up above. There was no actual zones there that we were looking for. So nothing that we can use there. At this point, since price has come up and taken out this previous pivot high, and we've actually changed into an uptrend on a daily chart, this area down here is probably not going to work. Again, we'll call this again, and this is probably just another missed entry. Where we could have gotten in, if we'd moved our entry point a little bit further up here. So don't expect that's going to work again. And so just real quick, nothing on the 240-minute time frame that I'm looking at, but you can see here that this is why we look at the different ones and use them to correlate with each other, because you actually saw that this area here on the 30-year bond worked out very well for us, even with the contract rollover. And you'll hear people say different things about, these continuous charts that we're using here to actually, look at the candles versus the actual contract specific ones. There's some discussion around whether they work as well, or if there's any risk involved in having these charts that put all of the contracts together rather than treating them as separate individual things. But this is just another good indication here. These supply and demand zones work even across different contracts. And so you'll see here, price came right into our area, came very close to stopping us out, but didn't, and is now my standard target for these trades is at 4 to 1. And as you can see, we're already up 5, almost 6 to 1 if you took this trade here. So let's go ahead and change this over to a used zone, and it did work. Change that to a green. Again, because we're so close to contract rollover, I won't even look at the smaller time frames there. But what you see here, though, the 30-year bonds are a little stronger than the 10-year ones. And that's just a direct reflection of the 30-year bonds really being driven up by the housing market. And the housing market is still very strong, so we do see that's is shown here. And there's a little, these two bond charts are not completely aligned with each other right now. When we look over at our TLT ETF here in just a second, we'll get a little bit better picture of where that is sitting and some of the areas of resistance that we're looking to get through to understand if we're going to continue higher than this overall place and actually have a full trend change even up on a weekly time frame, or if we'll look to move back lower again and pick up that overall bigger move back down. All right, index futures now. So this is where we'll get a little bit of fun at, right? Because we want to look at see how these are reacting compared to the DAX and the Nikkei that we looked at before. So on the ES, so S&P 500, we had our previous zone, our area of interest, that we did have some indication that this was going to move back up, and it did a little bit. So you're able to probably take some smaller time frame trades that were based on this, this area right here. But again, it's been compromised now. But we do have a much better zone, a little bit lower than we're at right now. Right, this is 44.75, and again, the good solid indications here. When you look left, you do see that price took out this previous pivot high here. And you look back through and prices changed direction in this area quite a few times. So there's some additional imbalance in this area. When we look at the NASDAQ chart, you'll also see there that we've got a zone in relatively the same spot. Again, those are really good indicators that price, the overall index markets will move and change together because you've got demand zones in the relatively close to the same areas. So as price comes into here, right, this is one that I'm, according to my trading plan, I will be taking trades in here. Now this is obviously a large risk to take in a pure futures contract. So you can use other opportunities or other options within, like maybe a SPY. You buy there, or maybe use options on SPY, or even options on the ES futures contract as well, or potentially use micro contracts to lower your overall risk when you take zones that are this big. So let's see if we get any other indication that price is actually changing here. So let's look at the 240-minute time frame, and price is just continuing down here. And so one of the first things that we look for, right, is our negative divergence on RSI, and we see a little bit of a mixed picture here, right? You would have seen that right in this area between these two lows. RSI definitely moved up, but then when you look at this new low that was just set yesterday evening, you'll see the price went back down lower again. So it's not a pure clean negative RSI or negative divergence on RSI, but it is generally speaking, still keeping up above this previous point set here on our side, the actual low point here. We're above that still, and price is still moving down. So a indicator, but let's call it a gray area one, right? It's not a clear cut one. And there's no zones that we can use in this area, so we're not going to trade up anything off of the 240-minute chart. Going down to our 60-minute chart, we're seeing the same overall picture where price continues to go down, but you look on the RSI chart below and you do see that the RSI price movement is continuing to move up. So again, potential indicators that that daily zone may be one that would actually work for us. And again, just looking at this, even at this level, there's nothing here that is showing up good to take on the 60-minute chart. So going back to our 15, now on a 15-minute chart, we are in a clear downtrend. So you would only be taking long or short positions here. However, if we get into that daily zone and then you see a demand zone form on the 15-minute chart, that would be an okay indication to go ahead and start getting back long on those. But again, just make sure you're taking additional risk mitigation for that, because it technically still is a counter trend trade. So as I look up and left, I'm not seeing anything that is clear enough. For me, shorting index markets, since they are designed to move up, requires multiple levels of additional indicators and odds enhancers that I think the trade is going to work. I can tell you just by looking at this chart right here, I'm not interested in any of these at all today. Okay, let's move over to the NASDAQ, and we'll see relatively the same picture here, right, where we had this same daily area of interest that ended up working out stronger than the S&P 500 one did, right? So you're able to I took a couple of smaller time frame trades in this area when we got confirmation that price was turning in it, but now price has gone through it. But then right below, we've got another, stronger daily zone here. And again, these are pretty close to lining up with each other because the NASDAQ moves a little bit more volatile and moves a little bit further and faster than the S&P 500 does. So if price comes into this area at the same time, very, very, very solid indicator that a trade here would work and would potentially work very well, taking you back up on a much longer move up. Okay, 240-minute chart. The reason why we want to look at this one is we do have this area of interest here. And again, these are not a strong zone, but one that we want to look at, pay attention to, see if there's another indicator we can use of why this one might work. You'll see here, price came right down yesterday at 5 p.m. And came very, very close to it. And you see it bounced off of this overall area, and now we're down in it. You can double check RSI 31.38 on this candle. Moving over to the other candle, it's 32.68. So technically speaking, we have negative divergence on RSI, even on a 240-minute time frame. However, it's very, very minimal, very small, and I would need to. It's probably one other indicator that something is going to work here. So when we get over to the 60-minute chart, we'll look at that and see if we can get that indication there. But just overall, we're in a pretty strong move down right now. You just want to be careful that you don't try and jump in too early on it. So on our 60-minute chart, we do have this area here that has already been used. This was a really, really good trade that was taken several weeks ago now, right? Back in, actually, it looks like November 1st. So it's always good to know these areas, especially ones that worked that strong, because there may be additional unfilled orders here, which would cause some more imbalance. So just good. That's why I keep them noted and keep marking them until they are actually completely used up, because you never know when you'll get that, again, that good indicator that something is going to work here for you. We are seeing a little bit of negative divergence on RSI here. So again, that's another indicator that 240 area might work. We do see a good, very solid structure up here, right at the 216 area for a nice supply zone as well. And so since we are still in this overall downtrend, this would be something that would be a very, very reasonable trade to take. If you look back and left on it, you'll see prices changed, in these areas a couple of times, but not significant movements. So just another indicator that this might be a reasonable trade to take. And again, this was also, you look at these dashed and dotted lines here. These are session breaks, so it just shows you where the trading day ended at. And so you can see that the price action here, the zone was created in the U.S. market open trading time frame yesterday. All right, let's jump down to our 15-minute time frame, and we had several of these areas drawn up yesterday, and we talked a little bit about this, about there was just uncertainty overall of what the trend was going to be. We were really looking for this area right above here, right, this 400, I think it was like 470 or 480 area that we were really looking to break to confirm that we were back in that uptrend so that these trades would work. And so that's why it was just very cautious with them. We didn't break that area, but price did come back down. And if what ended up happening was every one of these end up a small bounce off of. So this one you can see here, right? Price came down in here and then bounced up to this level right here, which would have been about a 1-to-1. So you would at least broke even with this one. Again, this is other indicators, right? Supply and demand definitely works. You can see where it works, and then the odds enhancers that we use demonstrate to us when prices are going to move in considerable distance from where it's at. Those are the trades that we really want to actually take, instead of just these small break-even ones. And then price came right back down into the second area here. And again, these are overnight zones created in this gray box. So we knew they weren't going to be strong with the full volume of the U.S. market. But again, this one bounced out of here as well and would have given us another break even, or a 1-to-1 if you're just taking small trades here. And then we came into this other area, and I called this one a much better probability because this was created in the U.S. market open area the previous day, and it was right below the overnight trading, which means sometimes these what they call traps, right? These bear traps work fairly well, and you can get price movement, 2 or 3 or 4 to 1 trades out of there. This one ended up at about a 2-to-1, but again, it didn't quite hit our full target. And that was primarily because price did not go up and confirm that we were in this uptrend. And so once that one broke, you knew that we were no longer in this uptrend, and that was kind of our indicator we could start taking short positions. I did a couple of those trades yesterday where I jumped in on smaller time frames and just jumped in on that shorter trend, that shorter downtrend continuing on. And sure enough, we saw price come down significantly, several hundred points below that. So we're looking again to see if there's anything that we want to continue taking here. I'm looking at this just going up and left. I don't see anything that really, fits my criteria. This area here is, this is a, so we got a rally, 2 base candles, drop, 3 base candles, drop down, and we are still in the overall downtrend here. So we'll draw these areas out. Again, I would probably be looking for a little bit of additional confirmation that price is going to actually change there. Again, for me, shorting index markets, you walk into that trade with 1 strike against you, period, right? So you need some additional validation that it's going to work before you take any shorts in an index market. All right, let's take a look at RTY, see what our small business group is doing. And on the daily chart here, we are just continuing to see the overall weakness. but we are still haven't broken through this overall white space area here. I'll just zoom back out so you can see that a little bit more clearly, right? This whole white space area here, we got to get below it. We got to get down here before, we're interested in taking anything. This is all, filled orders. Everything is supply demand is in balance. We need to get that out of balance, so move price down further before we're interested in taking anything here. Nothing on a 240-minute time frame. Let's look at a 60-minute, see if we've got anything new that happened yesterday that we would be interested in taking. And short answer is, yeah, there is nothing here. We still have this area up at 2304. I'm still interested in that. As long as we don't change trend before we get there, this will still be a good trade to take. 15-minute time frame, just to see, is there anything else that we want and we think would be helpful to get into on a quicker short-term trade throughout the day today. As I'm looking up and left here, I've got a couple of areas, but I'm hesitating on them. And I've said this before a few times. If I hesitate, it probably means it's not there. It means I'm looking too hard. Right? I look left. Yeah, I do have an indication here. Right? Price did change right here. And this zone is even with this pivot low right here on this shorter term uptrend. It was created during the trading day yesterday, so I would say if you get a quick retracement here, this might work. This should work. If price continues lower though and then comes back up again, look for that. Look for the possibility that trend would have changed before you take this trade here. All right, and that is it for our index markets. Let's do. I'm going to do the TLT one real quick before we get into the cryptocurrencies. So I sent this note out as well to the community yesterday, right, where we've got this area of resistance on a weekly chart, which, call it an area of resistance. It really is. It's a messy zone, but let's call it a zone anyways, right? This is a weekly zone. You see prices come in here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times now. We're the 6th time in this zone. Just call this area right here, so it's not a cleanly defined zone. This will be the make or break. If price comes up through here, look for a much higher move up. We've seen a little bit of weakness now in the futures markets in the 10 and 30 year. So really where this opens today, I think will give us a pretty good indication. If it opens and continues moving up, look for those longer term moves up. If it opens below or even opens in here and then comes back down again, then I think we've got a pretty good reason to believe that it's going to move, continue its overall move down. So that's on a weekly time frame. Let's look at daily. What do we got here? I think when I was looking at this yesterday before sending that note out to the community, I was looking at this, right? We're above Bollinger Bands again here. We've got a little bit of negative divergence in RSI, right? This point right here is a 64.24. Now we got a 61.97. So all of that combined, right? Coming into that weekly area, negative divergence here, contract rollover in the futures area showed a drop in overall price. These are all indicators. These aren't zones. We don't take this as a trade. But I think it's an indicator that price could turn and come back down from here. But we're going to look to see if it breaks this area first. So if it does that, again, typically for these ones only use a daily and a 60-minute chart on our ETFs. Anything else tends to end up being a little too messy. And so let me just zoom in on here, see if there's anything that we could potentially use. And there is not. And nothing here is clean enough where I'd be comfortable taking a trade at. So again, we've got a little bit of a mixed picture here, and we've got some good indicators that we're looking for. If those happen, we've got a much better picture of what happens once we get through that line or don't get through that line. All right, let's move on and look at a couple of cryptocurrencies, starting with Bitcoin. And honestly, I don't even have to get into this, right? We are still this complete sideways move, right? You can see this, right here, 240-minute chart, right? Several days worth of just straight sideways, and all the way back, 180, 120-minute chart here, even the one there right on top of my head, a 60-minute chart. Everything is completely sideways. We've got to get out of this area before we're interested in taking any trades whatsoever. Let's look at Ethereum. And a little bit slightly different here. And we talked about this a couple of days ago, I think, right? Where we had this area on the 240-minute chart. That was an area of interest. And we said if we could get confirmation that something was going to happen in here, go ahead and take this trade. And so what we did is we actually went over to our 60-minute chart, and you'll see here the lines don't go anywhere because all we wanted to do was draw this out so we had a good reference point as we're looking for those other indications. And what we had happen here was negative divergence on RSI. So we had, the price kept going up, three points here. And when you looked on your RSI, price action was moving down. That would have been your indication. Probably would have taken that on the first one here. So you could have gotten into the trade right here. Your stop would have been very, very close. And in reality, right, if I draw this correctly, let's say you got in roughly around here, right, just to add a little bit of wiggle room. When you look at, so let's go, 4-to-1 out. Good solid trade. So again, just another good example of how we use those bigger time frame areas of interest that aren't hard to find zones, or that aren't defined as clear zones. And we go to a smaller time frame and we look for what's the good confirmation point that allows us to get into this trade. And that's exactly what happened here. So now we're moving back down again. We're still in an overall uptrend. So I wouldn't hold on to this one for too much longer if you're in it. Let's see if we got anything on I'll jump down to 45-minute chart here and just see if there's anything that's jumps out at us of why we should stay in this one or get out of it if you're in it. And actually we've got some pretty good supply zones forming right up above here. So this might be a good indication that if you wanted to try and stay in this for longer term, move your stops down to these areas or to these zones. And that way you can take advantage of a bigger move down if it happens. All right, let's take a look at Litecoin now, the only other currency that we can get on this particular platform. And so we're in a consolidation area. You can see that on the charts, right? Prices just kind of moving back and forth and getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We still have this area on our 60-minute chart that we're potentially interested in. Again, only if we confirm that trend hasn't changed before we get up there. And again, Litecoin, much slower volume, so I wouldn't go much lower time frames on this one right now. Try and keep it on the higher time frames. All right, let's go just take a look at a couple of stocks. I think the other day when I did this, I started at the top of my list. So let's start at the bottom of the list this time. See if we can just get through a couple of other ones here. Activision Blizzard stock here that I was looking at this yesterday on the, this is a weekly time frame. We've got a really good formation here. That I think has a lot of potential. As you can see, the first one has now come all the way down completely through this zone. Let me just look real quick on a different platform I have to see where we're trading over after hours, and it looks like we did drop all the way down to 57.05. So this zone has now been compromised. And so one of the things just to take note when you are if you are trading stocks, I don't care about news and stuff for all the future stuff that we do, or like forex, right? Because news really doesn't matter with the market sizes those are and the volumes that they are. However, news can affect individual stocks pretty easily. So one of the reasons why you see Activision dropping so much recently is all of the issues that they're dealing with now with the sexual harassment, discrimination in the workforce. That type of news does actually impact them, and that's why if you're going to trade stocks, you actually have to at least have some understanding and knowledge of what's going on with that company, so you're not burned by a news thing that didn't impact their fundamentals, but people still got spooked and started a sell off, or just they're changing the way price is moving for that individual stock. Zoom. I had gotten a really interesting area here on the monthly time frame coming up. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of data here, right? Zoom is still a relatively new company. Let me just zoom in on this just so you can see it, get these numbers here. Down at the 140, basically 142 to 98. It's a large area. Obviously, I would use options play or something here to minimize your risk. And but yeah, I think this is again, if you look left, right, that's where price originally came up to, and then dipped down again, and then when it came up through here, it created this zone. So probably a pretty good indication that that Zoom is going to respond here. And just since I'm watching this live on another screen that I've got, I'm going to jump back to oil just to show you what we talk about with days like this where OPEC is meeting actively. So clearly some information came out, right? We had this significant drop. Literally since we've been talking, prices dropped $3.50 a barrel for oil. That is a very significant move, but that's why you want to be very cautious of smaller time frame trades while stuff like this is going on. You could have had something set up on like a 2, 5, or a 15-minute chart, and it would have just blown right through it without even pausing. So just be careful of that. It's another good example of why we are cautious when stuff like that is going on, and why it's important that we do note when those things happen. All right, let's jump back to our stock areas here. W here is Wayfair, and I don't have anything drawn on this that I have interested in right now. So let's go to XOM. It's ExxonMobil, and this is related to the oil stuff in the oil markets. So with that significant change, while this market is closed, I would expect this will be one that will gap down significantly far, and then potentially, if it gaps down into a nice demand zone, then that would be a good place to take a trade. I don't have anything drawn up here that I'm interested in. I can just tell that by looking at the charts here, so nothing to get into there. Wells Fargo, nothing close, right? The only thing we have here is on a monthly chart. We've got these areas here that I'm interested in. But again, we're still quite a ways away from that. Let's see. UNH, so United Health Care. And I don't have anything drawn up on this one at all either at this point. Tesla, here's a fun one. Almost impossible to trade just because of the size of it, but it's always been fun to watch. I've actually been watching Tesla for years and years and years, and back when it was a reasonable size, in the 200-300 range, I would actually trade it, but haven't been able to do so in quite some time now. And nothing here. Well, now that I'm looking at this, right, pull up the 60-minute chart, and I'll zoom in on this area here just because it does look relatively interesting. So we've got this back and forth, right? We got a little bit of white space here, maybe even some consolidation forming, prices dropping. We still have the indexes that are coming down. Tesla is part of the NASDAQ index, and that had dropped overnight. So you do have this area right here. You got, and if you look left, right, it's another previous supply zone that turned into a demand zone. So fairly reasonable. I wouldn't say this is going to drive a significant move anywhere, but if you wanted to take a shorter term, maybe a daily options play or something, you've actually got, unfortunately, you've got a couple of areas here, right, which all do fit our criteria overall. Again, maybe something that you look for the index markets to turn as well during that time, and that would be your additional indicator to take, one or two of the three of these. But just again, that's kind of what we're looking for when we look at these stock charts. All right, Procter and Gamble, and I don't have anything drawn on this one at all right now that I'm interested in. So jump over to Netflix. We had a very significant drop over the past few days in Netflix. Usually when I see this, I'll always dig into them because you always want to see if with price having this significant of a movement, is it coming up to anything that would be worth digging into. But and remember, Netflix is on a massive weekly and monthly uptrend right now, so a pretty good indicator that it's going to turn back around and continue moving up. But as I look down and left here, there is nothing that I can see, and this actually should be a dotted line. However, look back and where it was hit, barely touched here. Not at all unreasonable to think that this area would work again. Especially you could do like a very like a low risk options play here that could potentially really turn out good for you. All right, Netflix, and no comments in chat, so we'll keep going for just another couple minutes. Coca-Cola, another big move down, but there's nothing that I'm seeing that I've drawn on the charts here. I'll look down and left. Yeah, nothing here that I'm interested in on a daily chart. Just because we are breaking a previous pivot low on a weekly, I'll sometimes just jump in and look at this on a weekly even during the week instead of my normal Monday look. And as I look down and left, there's just nothing here that we're interested in. Let's see here, Coca-Cola. Let's go to Goldman Sachs. And we have on this weekly zone here, we're returning back to a previous area. I do have people that I know that when it comes to stocks and ETFs, strong zones like this, they will take over and over and over again. They will take every time it hits there until it breaks. And so in their rules, right, so they have gone in and done their analysis, and their rules state that, so as long as they follow that, it works, right? So what you can do sometimes is take some of these trades 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then even though the fifth time your probability is very, very, very low that that's going to work, it's 4 wins and 1 loss, right? We'll take those odds any day. So it's certainly not a bad strategy at all until people make it work very, very well. I don't, just not part of my trading plan. So I took this initially, ran that up, but this was a very, very profitable trade for us. I will note that price will come back down in here. It may work again, which is why I would just be cautious of getting on any shorts until we break through this area. Once you do, then you've clearly stated that price is moving down in a much stronger fashion, and that would be a good indicator to jump in on a short position there. We'll take a look at one more here. GameStop. I think we actually stopped with this one the other day as well. Overall picture, right? We've just crazy volatility, over the last year here. Settled down a bit. Again, looking at this before we zoom in, you've got this consolidation, right? Price movement is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We are looking to potentially break out of here. If we do break down lower, you could look for an area below and then look, for maybe some negative divergence on RSI. Couple that with a zone and then get on a bigger move back up. The only thing I can see here that's even remotely interesting whatsoever is this fairly weak area right here, weak area now, right here, right? You can see price came down close to it a few times, which means this area is overall strong. So this would be a perfect example, right? Watch this. If you get another indicator that price is going to change direction here, then this would be a great place to potentially take a trade at. All right, and that's where we will end for today. Thank you all very much for participating. Thank you very much for being part of the community. And make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you get notifications of when our additional educational videos come out. So you can continue to grow your knowledge and understanding of the way that we trade here. If there's anything that you want to see change, leave us a comment, shoot us a note, and we do look at those and make sure that we adapt the show to what is best suiting you all. Have a great and safe trading day. See you tomorrow, 8:15 Eastern, for another live day trading setup.